Okay, right. Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Game Breakdown Podcast, the podcast where we break down all different kinds of games, or in this case, we drag them for filth.
I
So,
know. Episode 7 of Disgust.
discuss. So this one is all about one of our favorite games. This one is about Resident Evil 3, which is one of my personal favorites from the Resident Evil franchise. And look, I'm just going to preface this by saying we both like the game. Please don't think that we hate it because we say some things, but
And it's,
that's about.
yeah, it's purely out of love, which we try to reiterate. I can't even say it. What's the word?
Because we're just so frazzled from all the
I
slagging off. We try to reiterate it numerous times. It is out of love. We do love this game so much. I love Resident Evil so much, so that's why. But yeah, prepare yourself. But we hope you enjoy this episode. And if you want to hear us just cut everything down, then carry on listening.
enjoy.
Enjoy. So Carrie has finally got to the third installment, and you recently finished it. Is that right?
I have. I finished the remake, and I've got some opinions on it as someone that's played it with fresh eyes.
Okay, yeah. Because you haven't touched the original. Well, okay, so you have also, now that you've finished the Resident Evil 3 remake, you have started to play the Resident Evil 3 original game on the PS1, haven't you?
Yeah, I had to. I felt like it was a requirement after playing the third one. It was weird because after playing the remake of 2, like as much as I
Mhm.
want to go back to it, I didn't feel like I had to. But after playing 3, I was like, something feels off. Like I need to play the original.
Interesting that
Mm.
you think that. But have you finished the original yet?
No, I'm really close to finishing it, but I haven't officially finished it. But
Okay, whereabouts are you?
well, I just got to the clock tower, which
Okay.
I didn't even know existed, obviously, because
Well,
that
you wouldn't.
wasn't in well, even yeah, because that weren't in the remake. And
hmm
I'm just like, okay, why was this not here? You know,
Yeah,
which is probably my opinion throughout my experience, but yeah.
good stuff. I mean, yeah, that's how. Anyway, we'll get there. But right, okay, let's start from the very beginning then. So you have played Resident Evil 3 Remake. Before you talk about any of your love for the original that you've recently played or any of that, when you played RE1 Remake, RE2 Remake, and then you got onto RE3, what did you think? Do you think it like matched up well? Like, did you enjoy RE3? Do you think it felt like part of the series? Was it good? Was it crap? Like, what are you thinking?
Honestly, like I I thought it looked great, and
hmm
when it started, and you're in the apartment, I was like, okay, like I'm really excited for this. And then
Yeah.
it slowly kind of just didn't really meet my expectations as like 2 did. Not obviously that I had anything to compare it to, from like original sort of way, but obviously comparing number 3 to number 2, like you said, it's just for me, it didn't have the same kind of, I don't know how you'd word it, the same kind of like, is gumption a word? Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
it just didn't hit the spot, in my opinion.
Do you feel like something was missing?
Big time. I think the whole time I was playing Resi 3, the remake, I felt really rushed. I
hmm
felt like I was always kind of, I don't know, I kind of felt like I was pushed through the game, and there was areas where there was cutscenes that I didn't want them to be, and then there was areas that I was playing and I was like, why am I playing this?
hmm
And I didn't really take to Raccoon City very well. Like it's weird because when I started Resi 2, in the police station, I've mentioned it before how it reminded me of the mansion in Resi 1. So
Yeah.
I was like, okay, like this kind of feels right, you know, and I felt like I'd found my place and I just had to work out the police station and everything was fine. With this, I don't know what it was. I just couldn't settle. Like I never felt settled as I was playing it. If that does that make sense? Like
Yeah.
I don't know.
You didn't
I
feel you
just
had like time to breathe.
yeah, I didn't have time to breathe. I didn't really I felt like there were I don't know, I felt like the doors being locked and everything just kind of didn't feel like a challenge, if that makes sense. They were just kind of locked. And it was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
You know, like it just, I don't know. There wasn't any life in this city. It was all very closed. Like this is meant to be a city.
hmm
And I've only going in like about 4 areas, I think it was. And I just didn't really feel like I was in a city. I just felt like I was, I don't know, like in this little area. And yeah, it didn't grip me off the bat, which I was really kind of gutted about because I had such high hopes for it after 2.
Yeah. Especially
Even
being a Jill game.
Yeah, exactly. Because like the last time I played as Jill was obviously in the remake of one, which I adored, and
Hmm.
I was just a bit kind of confused by it. So yeah, a little bit let down really. And that's weird coming from someone that has nothing to compare it to, you know? Like I don't know what it was considering I'd never touched the original, I'd never even seen anything on the original. So
Hmm.
playing the third installment and I felt like something was missing. It was almost like there's a little voice in the back of my head like this isn't right, you know, like the little gamer voice is like, why does this feel off? Like
Yeah.
so yeah.
See, but it's interesting that you say that because, like you said, you're not like a massive Resident Evil fan where you've played all of the original games
Yeah.
and you know them inside out and you've got something to compare it to. You're a very much a new fan, which is fair to say, you think, right?
Yeah.
You've only played the remakes. So, really, I suppose Resident Evil 3 remake is aimed at you. You're the target audience because you're only experiencing the remakes of the game. So you've got nothing to compare it to. This should just
Hmm.
be a new experience. And it already failed in meeting up to the expectations of the previous one. And this
Yeah.
is what gets me because, I mean, I'm just going to go into it a little bit now. This was a lot of like the fandom's grief, like grievances with it, because the game just doesn't. It's a good game. I enjoyed it. I had fun playing it. I think it played really well. I think the controls were really good. I think they did a good job at making it seem a little bit more action paced because the original, as you probably discovered as you've played it a little bit now, is a bit more action based. It's not as um, stealthy and quiet as the other two are. This one has a bit more action to it because you can dodge and you can like move around a bit quicker. So I like the way they stepped it up in that sense, but they removed so much from this game. And like before we even talk about the areas they cut, because that's a whole conversation in itself in a moment, the story they cut from it and the character development they cut from it and all that was just too much. So I felt like Jill was pushed out of her apartment, pushed into the next level, and it was all just moving so quickly. There was no lulls. And I get it, the city's being destroyed, everything has to be quick, but the story's the same essentially as the original. The city was on a time crunch then as well, but you still had those moments of, okay, I've got a puzzle to solve. And that's the main problem that I have with Resi 3. There is no puzzles. There is one puzzle. There is one puzzle, and it's crap. It's the train puzzle. That's the only puzzle in the game. And the answer's on the board behind you. All you've got to do is look up and look down, look up and look down, and you've solved it.
I mean,
Like,
there's technically the vaccine puzzle, but we can't really say that's a puzzle, you
oh,
know,
I don't call that a puzzle, do you?
because it's no. I mean, fair enough. When I was playing it, I was like, "What do I do?" And then someone was like, "It's game logic," and I stood there for like a little while, running around, thinking, "Well, you know, there's not really been any puzzles. Surely it's just on a board somewhere." And then I was like, "Oh no,
Hmm.
I have to get all the lines green." That was it. There
Yeah,
wasn't there wasn't no moving around, and it was
no.
so I saw once I'd kind of clocked on, I solved it within seconds.
Hmm.
So yeah, like you said, like it's not a bad game, but I know Resident Evil as having puzzles. Like that was
Yeah.
kind of the thing that drew me in because like I said, when I was looking on the outside in, I never thought there was puzzles in it.
Hmm.
So that's kind of what hooked me in because I was like, wow, this is more complex than I thought. And then Resi 3 kind of just took that away. And I was kind of like, okay, so now it's just what I thought it was going to be before I'd even touched a Resi game, which is zombies and running
Yeah.
around.
A zombie shooter.
Hmm.
And like it makes me so upset because the Resident Evil 3 is like in the fandom, I guess, considered one of the best ones, the original game. And for me personally, I think it's like more of a personal thing as well. That is one of my favorite of all three of them. Like that was when that one came out, I was just kind of the age where I was felt brave enough to play my own Resident Evil game by myself without like my siblings holding my hand. So like it was my first proper experience of me like traversing a game alone in like a horror game. And I felt like that one had such a special connection to it. They just didn't do it well, like at all. Don't get me wrong, there's so many things they did right and so many things that I really enjoyed, but a lot of it was just a big no for me. And like what upsets me is that Resident Evil 3 remake and Resident Evil 2 remake were being made at the same time so they could make sure that their storylines crossed over, which they failed to do on like multiple occasions. But what that means is that Resident Evil 3 has been in development since Resident Evil 2 started, and it came out a year after RE2. So it was being subtly developed for like a lot longer than RE2 was, and it's
Mm.
still just missing so much. You think, how could you make such a big mistake? Like, how could you mess up so much when you've just released RE2 and you've been praised like they've had the hell praise out of them, saying how amazing it is, and then they think, great, all that stuff was really good. Let's not put it in the next game.
Yeah.
Meeting finished. Like, what meeting was that? Who chaired that meeting at Capcom when they were like, all that stuff that was really good for the last game, let's just not include any of that. I'm like, yeah, yeah, cool, let's just do that.
Well, it's like I said to you, I felt like there was, since I'd played the original, um, I almost felt like they were expecting players to know the game.
Yeah.
So when I was playing it, that I was kind of like a bit like, and you even like, I know I said to you, like it almost felt as though they were expecting the old fans to play it more so than the
Hmm.
new fans. And like as
Yeah.
a new fan, it's not a bad game. Like if it never had an original, I probably would say, yeah, it's a good installment. It's a bit short, it's a
Hmm.
bit pushy, it's a bit, but other than that, like Nemesis evolves and it's pretty awesome when he gets fucking huge, and
Hmm.
Jill says some good lines, and yeah, it has some good moments, but like I think without the original, it didn't make sense on its own.
Yeah.
Like yeah, it didn't make sense. It was kind of like a counterpart to the original rather than its own being, whereas Resi 2 was like its own being.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's kind of the annoying thing. But
RE3 felt to me like DLC. I felt like it was
yeah,
RE2's DLC. Like, oh wow, like I paid a tenner and got an extra chunk of game. And if it was like that and that's what I got, I would have been like, oh, do you know what? That wasn't bad.
yeah.
But because there was so much missing, I was like, this was a full price game. And this was like, and what was really sad about this, side note, this was like, this game was released as lockdown and COVID was happening, like as it was beginning. And I remember it was the first week of lockdown and I was expecting this game to be delivered. And it turned up and I was like, oh my God, I've got a whole weekend and I've got nothing, no work on Monday because we're still in the midst of lockdown. I'm going to spend all weekend playing this. And I did. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, actually, I didn't. I spent all of Friday playing it and I was like, oh, I finished it. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, because it is ridiculously short. I mean,
Hmm.
obviously they've got the different sort of levels of difficulty. I think it's like Inferno's the most difficult one you can go for, but
Yeah,
sometimes you just want to enjoy the game. Like, I guess, all right, I guess as a Resident Evil player, you want to go through the difficulties because you learn it. So I get that
yeah,
side to it, but for me, like I just enjoy the games as they are. Like I'm not at that stage yet where I want to replay them again and get my time down to like really short. I just want to enjoy it for
yeah.
what it is. So I was a little bit let down when it felt like the only kind of benefit to that game was the fact that it's short enough so that you can keep replaying it. And it was like,
Hmm. That's the thing. And when it comes to difficulties, I will say there is something that made me happy about it because all of my, not all of them, but a large chunk of my grievances, well, some of them, when I changed difficulty, eventually went on to hardcore and onto Inferno, it did fix some of the problems. However, it then brought with it other problems, which we'll get into. I feel like we should have a bit of a chat, like break down exactly what kind of pissed us off in the game. Do you think that's like a good thing to do?
mm,
Okay, so starting off at the very beginning of the game, the first thing that I think really hit me was the fact that I was entering, and this might feel different for you because you didn't play the demo that they released, but your first proper area is the demo area. So then I had played the demo quite a few times, so I was so excited for it, and I already knew when Nemesis was going to appear, and I already knew the whole layout of the area. And I didn't even need to play it hundreds of times to know that. It's very simple. There's like the donut shop, there's the toy shop, there's the inside building bit where there's a zombie on the floor, and there's the pharmacy. That's it. Like that's a whole area. And I was like, oh, okay, I can't wait to zoom past this bit because I know it, and I'm going to get into the next area, and I can't wait to see what else this game has in store. But then that's what upset me is the game had nothing else in store for me. Like the original tried to give you the illusion that you were in a huge city and you were navigating through different areas, and you go through different random car parks. You go into like news offices. You go into a park. You feel like you're traversing through a city. This game was like 5 rooms, and that was the first thing that upset me.
exactly. That's what I said. I
Mhm.
it didn't feel like a city. It felt like really closed in, and I was just like,
Mhm.
it don't take a lot to figure it out, does it? Like, I mean, everything's in one place. It's just, and then
Yeah.
when you think about the mansion, which felt like it was never ending, and the police station, there was an outdoor bit, there was a little roof, there was like underground. I mean, that was massive. And then it was like, okay, now we're in a city which is bigger than a
Hmm.
building, but no, it's not. You know, like no, it's not. It's not as big as the fucking. This entire city is not as big as the mansion. So there you
Yeah,
go.
exactly. And that's like a huge thing. And like on top of that, the second thing that annoyed me is Nemesis wasn't a threat to me whatsoever. Did you find him to be a threat?
No, I kept
No, not at
expecting him
all.
to be, and I was like panicking. I was like, oh no, and then yeah, I just kept defeating him, and I was like, oh,
He was not a problem for me at all. He never, the only time he ever killed me, like repeatedly, where he was a big issue was when, and this is what I was going to talk about later, was when I jumped up to hardcore and Inferno. There he becomes a bit more of a problem. And that was like what he should have been like on standard. Because in the original, even though he was scripted, he didn't appear randomly, he was scripted. He appeared so much more and he felt like someone who was stalking you. Like
mm,
because the first part of the game is so quick, you don't really spend any time with him because that's the only part of the game where he stalks you. And you think, really, you've put him in this really tiny area when I'm meant to be in a city, he could appear at any moment. Like we're on next gen console technology. You could make this fucker appear out of any random space you wanted to at any time. And like, come on, lots of like RNG could have made him appear at any point. And that could have been what's more frightening is that you could be walking through doing a puzzle and suddenly there's Nemesis, or you could be in the middle of a massive fight and suddenly there's Nemesis. But no, he doesn't appear nearly as enough as he does in the original.
yeah. And the thing I love about the original as well is it's how he talks when he's like stars. He
Yeah.
says stars, and you're like,
Mhm.
oh, you know,
He doesn't even say it in
he
this new
don't
one. Well,
say
he
it in the
does,
second one.
but like you can't you can't make it out. You can't hear it, and you don't feel that threat. Like in the original, you know, you can't even see him on screen. You just hear stars. You think,
Yeah.
oh shit, he's somewhere. Like,
Hmm.
do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
But isn't
like
this? Mm,
if we compare him to sort of the Mr. X,
yeah.
and we compare that from like number two, Mr. X was done so bloody well, which we spoke about, was the fact that there was the footsteps, there was all that kind of presence,
Hmm.
and I wish they'd kind of taken a little bit of that with Nemesis, because
Yeah.
I get that he's meant to be more direct and he wants to end stars, you know, but
Hmm.
I wish they'd kind of learned how well they did with Mr. X and kind of reflected that in Nemesis, because Nemesis doesn't really feel like a nuisance. Like in the original, he's an absolute pain in the ass, and like he
Hmm.
scared me in the original. In the
Yeah.
remake, I weren't scared. Like
No.
fair enough, he jumped down a bit and used to make me jump, and I'm like, oh, here he is again. You know what I mean? But like in the original, I was actually like, shit, he's here, and he's quick, and he's so bloody quick in the original as
Yeah.
well.
But
Like
that's the thing. He's slow and then quick. And you don't
yeah,
expect it. That's what's frightening.
yeah,
Hmm.
exactly. So it's like it's a challenge, and like you feel like he's a threat, and you're like, okay, the big guy's here now. Like let's
Hmm.
fucking sort it out. But
Yeah.
like in the remake, he just sort of lands, and then you can shoot some stuff to shock him, which is nice. You've got environment that can help you, but he just doesn't have the kind of he just doesn't have that scariness to him at all, does he? Even though
No.
he looks brilliant, don't you? Like he's a fantastic model,
Mm.
looks great, horrendous. Looks like he's got a bin bag on his head, but he looks good.
I know.
I know you should, but apart from that, yeah, he looks good. But in comparison, he's not scary. He's not. He doesn't say stars, and like I feel like that's so iconic of him to say stars in that way. And I wish they just used the file, like or
They literally
something,
should have
you know.
used the same like .wav file. Do you know what I mean? Like
Or got
the
someone to do it. Yeah.
do you know what I mean? The say they like the way he says it in the new game, he barely says it. And everyone, there's been people complaining online, but like he does say it, you're just not realizing it. But that's a problem. If I don't realize it, then obviously I'm not hearing it enough. Like it should be, you should almost be sick of him saying it because the whole point is you're meant to hate this guy by the end of the game. That when you eventually get to kill him, like fucking like have enough. And that's another thing which I'm just gonna say you haven't got to yet. This isn't really a spoiler or anything, but at the very end of the game, when Jill manages to, in the original, take down
Mm,
Nemesis, her iconic line is, "You want stars, I'll give you stars," and then finishes him, right?
right.
That is like one of the most iconic lines in Resident Evil gaming, probably gaming altogether. They moved that line to a really random section that can be skipped if she's hit by him, by the way. The line doesn't even come out. They moved it to the bit where you enter the train station with Carlos and Nemesis comes down the train station and she randomly says, "You want stars, I'll give you stars." But you're not even fighting him, so it doesn't make any sense. You're running from him. So they move this line. I sound so passionate. I'm so angry.
It's fine. Let it out, me. It's
they
fine.
they move this line to a really throwaway segment of the game, and like it doesn't make any sense because you barely hear him say stars, so the line doesn't make any sense. If he was saying stars 24/7, you'd be like, "Oh, Joe, what, you fucking want stars? I'll give you stars," and then you have a fight with him. Like it makes no sense where they put the game, where they put the game, where they put that line, and
Yeah.
it's one of those things that really irritates me. And there's like people on YouTube that have edited the lines and moved them to the correct places, and it's so much better.
Thank God someone did it.
Thank God someone's done it.
No, but it's, yeah, it is little things like that, which obviously I guess I had the blissfulness of not judging it, when I
Yeah.
played it. It was completely fresh, and yeah, there was just things like that that you just accept. But then when you play the original, you're like, okay. One of my pet peeves with the game was the camera during the fights. For
Oh
me,
yeah.
that did my nut in. I could not stand that camera. Like,
Hmm.
I was zooming in, I couldn't track him, I was all over the place, and I was like, where's the tracking in this camera? And I weren't even the only one, because everyone said, the camera's trash, like,
The
in
camera is
fights.
botched. And you know what? If you do go back and play on like hardcore Inferno, it gets even worse. There's a glitch that I think is Inferno specific. I think when you're fighting Nemesis in that acid pool, like when Carlos lifts you out on the crane and you get out, that battle there, when he attacks you, if you throw something and you attack him, the camera zooms in for that moment of intensity. It's meant to come back out, and in Inferno, it doesn't. And when I tried it, I got stuck and I kept dying because the camera zoomed right in. All I could see was Jill's hair and a fraction of Nemesis, and I couldn't get it to come back. And I thought, for fuck's sake, like really, like the camera's botched in 2020. Like
Yeah,
what?
yeah. Okay, so, I mean, we'll probably end up sharing a few more stories of things that we disliked.
Yeah.
But on a lighter note, um,
I'm gonna drink a
I
tea and calm down. Hold on.
firstly, I thought Jill looked fantastic.
Oh,
Like,
brilliant. Yeah.
she just looked brilliant, and her attitude come across. She was a bit sassy. I loved it. I also thought the section with the generators in the remake, loved that. That was that
Oh, okay.
that was
Hmm.
built up massively from the original. Because obviously in the original, you just kind of go into the gate, you open two doors, like two doors. You go in and you get the fuse.
Hmm.
In the remake, it's a full kind of situation, even though
Yeah.
it that really creeped me out. That there was, we said this, it was like really like sexualized, with Jill
Unnecessarily so.
being picked up by the throat. I
Be
was
like
like,
deep throated by this
deep throated.
chimera.
Yeah, which, like, oh, I did made that made me feel so weird. But
Hmm.
that was definitely my favorite kind of remade area, because I recognized it as soon as I was playing the original. I was like, oh, like, is it going to be as big? And then
Hmm.
obviously I went in and like did that, and it was smaller, but that's understandable. But it didn't bother me that it was smaller in the original, because the rest of the game made up for it.
Yeah.
But I did like the remake of that. So that was probably one of the highlights for me, was just that little area, because I remembered it so well from the remake.
See, that's what's good though, when they take something and they take an idea and they run with it and make and just like flesh it out a bit more. That's all the game needed. And this is the thing. It's like when you're dealing with iconic games like Resident Evil or Final Fantasy or whatever, all you need to do when they're that great, you just need to take what's already there and like flesh it out, not think, "Do you know what, that's used to strip it away," because people like have such an attachment. They'll be like, "Oh, this is missing." So like that's the only thing, but that's what they shouldn't they should have really done. But I agree with you. I really like the way they handled the remake, the redesign of the power plant and stuff. The
Mm.
only thing that I found a little bit strange in that area, I will say, is when you actually complete that bit and you connect the power, and then she says some really like sassy line, and the power plant like goes on and everything. If you re-enter it, there's no difference. Now, I
Ah,
thought like going back, I was trying to be like, oh, like Easter egg hunter, like I'm gonna go back in and see what's going on.
yeah,
It's the exact same layout and nothing's changed, and the fuse doesn't look to be activated. So I was like, oh, okay, that was a little bit lazy, but never mind.
that is a shame.
It is a little bit, isn't
See,
it?
I
But
didn't go back. Normally, I would say I'm like you, and I go back to see if something's changed. But obviously, because
mhm,
I was streaming it, I was like, let's move forward,
yeah,
So I didn't go back, and I kind of wish I had. But that is a bit of a letdown, to be fair.
it is a little bit. I mean, it was my second playthrough that I went back in. The first one, I was like
Mm.
you, I just plowed on.
Yeah.
But no, I will agree with you completely. Jill was done so well. Everyone says that their favorite is Julia Voth, who was the first remakes version of Jill.
Mm.
Nothing against Julia Voth. She's like a really, really stunningly beautiful woman. But for me, Nicole Tompkins, who's the one who's the remake version of Jill, I think she's perfect. Like I
Yeah,
think she does. When I think of like PS1 Jill, like I feel like they've actually found someone who kind of looks like PS1 Jill and made it into current day. Like it really makes sense. So I think she looks so good. I thought the game looked beautiful.
yeah,
Like the sound design is still as good as it was in
yeah,
RE2. Like, yeah, I agree. A lot of positive points there.
yeah.
And like, I don't want to sound like I just hate this game because I really don't hate this game. I really do enjoy it, but I just have a lot of opinions.
I think that can't be helped though, isn't it? Like I said, even coming in like fresh eyed, I really
Hmm.
wanted to love it as much as Resi 2. And I you can't help but put 2 and 3 in the same basket because they were
Yeah.
remade and you expect them to be of the exact same standard. And when it
Hmm.
kind of just falls that much short, you're like, you can't help but have opinions.
No.
And now I've actually can form my own opinions because I played the original almost
Yeah.
fully. I understand it. And like the original is just brilliant. Like I'm so like
It's a fantastic game.
made me jump way more than the remake. Like
Hmm.
I think I was playing it for about 10 minutes, and I remember just going down this little kind of alleyway, and then 3 zombies come out, and I literally jumped. Like
Hmm.
the camera angles, the music, and it felt like how it was meant to feel. You know, like that kind of survival. Like it really feels like survival and strategy, and exactly what I love it for.
Yeah.
Um,
I didn't feel like in the remake that I was actually possibly the only person left alive trying to scrounge around to like keep myself alive and get out of there.
And
Whereas
how
in
much
the
ammo
original, you
do you
do.
get? You get so much
Oh,
ammo in the third one. Like it's
yeah.
constant. You never run out. You're like, okay, like
It
I don't
does
have to worry.
change in the higher difficulties, but still, I
Yeah.
shouldn't have to play a game on Inferno to get a true experience. I should be able to play on normal and get like a relatively, you know, relatively true experience. I mean, like in the original, the jump scares in that for me are so much better. Like even the very first one I remember is being in the police station, which is something that I'm going to get onto in just a moment. But when you're in the police station and you go upstairs and on your way back down, you hear a window crack, but you
Mm-hmm.
don't know where it's come from, and then you go down the stairs and then Nemesis busts through the fucking window,
Yeah.
like that kind of stuff that nothing like that. I mean, you could compare it, I suppose, to RE1 where the dogs jump out of the window, but even so, like you don't expect that at all because you've been through that area before. So you're like, and thinking of like as an old school game, you're like, well, nothing's going to happen there because that's just a pre-rendered background. Like nothing's going to happen, and then he does. Like he
And you're so
flies through the
wrong.
window, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh shit, I'm stuck in a corridor. I've got nowhere to run. What do
I
I
was
do?
not expecting him at all.
Mhm.
I thought I was fine. But that's the thing. That's why I wish that Jill went into the police station in the
Yeah.
remake because they had all that, you know, and like we just seen Nemesis more. We wouldn't have kind of just seen him here and there, got a few upgrades, and then we have a
Hmm.
fight, and then we have another fight, and then we get chased by a laser. You know, like in the original, it's like shit. He is here now, and it makes sense. Like I don't understand why she didn't go into the police station because it's Jill. It's the
It's
police station.
literally, it's actually beyond me. I can't believe they made such a stupid mistake, and that's what it is. It's a stupid mistake. Like
Stupid.
it's stupid. It's I don't know why Carlos has no ties to the police station whatsoever.
No.
So what was the point of taking him back there? Like the
Hmm.
whole point of the original reason why Jill goes to the police office, the S.T.A.R.S office, and all that is really stupid. Don't get me wrong. She goes there to get a paperclip that
Yeah.
she calls a lockpick. So like that is
Yeah.
really dumb. But they could have thought of a better reason. Like the fact that you picked up a random policeman's gun out of off like a zombie that's been dead on the floor to use as your own gun, the real reason could have been like, let's go to the S.T.A.R.S office where my actual S.T.A.R.S custom kendo model is and where my bulletproof vest or my something. Like it could have been like gearing herself up for what's actually happening, and they could have given you a big chunk of ammo to like use or whatever. But
Hmm.
there could have been a better reason to take her there, which is fine. But why not just take her there? I mean, this really reminds me of. Did you ever watch Game of Thrones?
Kind of.
Okay, partly. Well,
Partly.
it reminds me of that in the sense that every theory that everybody had about how the show was going to end on Twitter was a million times better than the way it actually ended. And this is the exact same thing. People were running through the police station in RE2 being like, there's a hole in the wall. How'd that get there? That must be where Nemesis busts through. Okay, so I'm guessing in RE3, Nemesis will come through here. Nemesis will do that. Nemesis will do that. And people were screenshotting, captioning, fucking drawing a Nemesis and like matching him to patterns, and none of it was true. It was like fiction was so much better than truth, and it was like, oh,
Mhm.
really, you missed a massive, because then he doesn't even go to the police station, which is really
No.
dumb. Because another thing, and sorry, I'm going on now. In the RE2 demo, they updated it a week or so before RE3 come out, and if you went back into the RE2 demo and you went to the front of the police station, you could hear stars being screamed by Nemesis, and that was the whole thing of like, he's coming, it's coming.
Yeah.
So like, why have that little Easter egg in there if you weren't even gonna fucking use it? It makes me so mad.
It's like what could have been.
Yeah, because like also Brad dies there, and like it meant nothing for Carlos to see that. It meant zero, where that could have been a really painful emotional scene because Jill would have to have been the one to put Brad out of his misery. Because in the originals, it was Leon or Claire that had to kill Brad.
Yeah, because
Like it was,
he bites Marvin, doesn't he? And you're a bit like,
yeah.
oh, rip Marvin,
See,
which
but
made
it's like,
sense, but
yeah, it does. But that's like the fact of Brad dying was like a little Easter egg because in RE2, if you didn't pick up any ammo and got to the police station, you'd find Brad as a special zombie and you wouldn't have known he was dead yet. So you kill him and you'd get a special key to unlock an alternate costume for Claire or Leon. But this would have been like really emotional. Like Brad just gave his life to save Jill at the pub, and now she's going to have to be the one to put a bullet through his head, and it would have been like a gut wrenching scene. But no, instead Carlos got to like wave his new hair around.
yeah. But that's the thing in the remake, Brad literally gets just casually bit when he's trying to. What is it? He's either by a fence or he's trying to close the door or something, and he gets casually bit, and
It's
it's
by the
kind of
door.
just like swept under the rug, and it's like, right, bye, Brad. Do you know what I mean? Like that's it,
Yeah,
and it's like okay. Whereas you feel it, you do feel like a lot more with Jill going there, and I think you just feel connected, and it all makes sense because yeah, I'll just keep repeating myself, but like, why did Carlos have to go there? Like, it
it
makes
doesn't
zero
make.
sense. He has no ties to it. It was kind of a bit like, huh?
It was just really dumb, and like Brad's death meant nothing in a way because it was very anticlimactic. Whereas in the original, like, all right, Brad was a chicken and he deserted you in the middle of the pub.
Yeah,
But at least, like, when he died, it was a really dramatic moment. And that was your first introduction to Nemesis. And it was like, oh my God, he just whacked out Brad in seconds. What chance have I got? But, like, here it was like, oh, there's Brad. He's been bitten at the door. Is that it? Are we going to see him later? Oh, Carlos just shoots him. Okay. Like
yeah.
it just didn't mean anything to me, and I was a bit like, oh, that's
For
a
a
bit
character
sad.
that's kind of been there through the games,
Yeah, and they
sort of,
tried
you
to
know.
like change him into being more of a brave person, like trying to
Hmm.
save Jill and stuff. It would have been even better to have Jill be the one to take him out. And why did they have to go to the police station to have a FaceTime call with a doctor? Like it
Yeah,
made no sense. It was just so silly.
yeah.
Like it was just really silly.
It really made no sense. And I mean, the police station looked great in three. It felt kind of relevant to two. You know,
Hmm.
like that all looked great, and I was super excited to be back in the police station as Carlos, but I didn't know the real reason, like in the original game. So I was buzzing. I was like, oh yeah, we're back here, and kind of just thought past it and was just like, okay, we're here with Carlos. But
Hmm.
then when I played the original, I was like, no, this should have been Jill. Like this is wrong. It shouldn't have been him. So
Yeah.
now I'm like, no. But
Also, half the walls that were knocked down in two, which we all thought were from Nemesis, then have to have been from Mr. X. But it doesn't make sense for him just to go around smashing the walls up because there was no member. Like what he was, the walls were already broken before Mr. X appeared. So it didn't make any sense as to why there was holes in the wall or why he was there. Like, do you know what I mean? It then unravels everything.
yeah.
That little mistake they've made has now unraveled several plot points, which they don't seem to care about, and that's what's
Mm,
really sad. They don't care about the story of the game.
yeah. I felt like the story was really lacking. But like I said, I felt like the game was made, it's supposed to be made for new people, but it's
Mhm.
definitely made for like the fans because as a new person playing that game, say I'd never touched a Resi game before and I was like, okay, this one's shorter, maybe I can kind of play a little bit of this, get a feel for it. You know, Jill's an awesome character, like loads of people have been posting about her on Twitter. Let's see.
Yeah.
Again, there would have just been like nothing would have made sense to me.
Hmm.
So yeah, kind of sucks.
Does kind of suck. Although I will say, Carlos's remake was bloody good because
Oh
he
my god,
looked like
yeah.
really ridiculous in the original. Not ridiculous, but he just didn't. He was really what I kind of. I'm glad they changed, but I kind of miss it for the nostalgia. Was Carlos's like cheesiness because
He
like
was
in the
so
original,
cheesy. We
he's
gotta
so
go
cheesy.
here.
He's
Yeah.
like, was it watch out, lady, or no, hey, calm down, lady, like just all that kind of nonsense. Like, hey, it's me, Carlos. Like the way he talks was just so ridiculous, and I do miss it. But
Yeah.
they made him look 10 times better, and his character's a bit more caring. Because like in the original, you have a depending on where you meet him, you can like choose to basically have them almost flirt quite a bit, or Jill gets like super turned off by his like cheesy attempts to like um, console her, and she ends up giving him a slap. So like it was quite cool that they gave him like a proper human's personality and not like a caricature of an Italian like suave, like not Joey from Friends. Like, do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. No, they did. They've done such a fantastic job on like all the characters. I thought
mhm.
Nikolai looked awesome. He looks.
Yeah, he looked really
It's
good.
so weird how you can play a game that looks like that, play the remake, and everyone works. You know, like everyone's
Yeah.
perfect. So yeah, big appreciation for the character design. Big appreciation
Mhm.
for like just the visuals. I just wish they'd expanded it. And that brings me to my next point.
Mhm.
Why the fuck did they get rid of the gravedigger underground?
The worm boss, the
The
gravedigger
worm
boss.
boss, yeah,
Yeah.
because that was so good that I can just imagine that, and it would have been so intense because it's bloody intense in the original. It was for me because I just kept getting bit. I couldn't get to the ladder in time, and I was getting so
Mhm.
annoyed. I am playing it on my Vita, so that's my
It is
excuse.
still hard though, even if you play it on the
But
original console. It's tricky.
it's tricky, and I
Yeah.
just feel like that was so good, and that weren't really a puzzle. That was pressing some
Mhm.
levers. Where's my? I
Levers.
don't know what it is. Buttons, and it's like, why didn't you just? Why couldn't we have had that? Like,
This is just I just literally add that onto the list of things that they just got rid of because that was an iconic boss
mhm,
because, aside from the fact that it looks like a giant penis,
mhm.
like they could have, maybe toned that down a bit. But like he would have been a fantastic boss to have because it just would have been really cool to have like that giant worm appear out of nowhere and be like, oh my god. And they could have like there was just so much they could have done for it. It really does irk me.
I tell you what, it's the choices. It's having the choices that are great
Hmm.
that flash up, and you have two
Yeah.
things: do we fight? Do we leave him? If we leave him, the fight's going to be more difficult the next time. But if we do it
Hmm.
now, get it out of the way, we can get our upgrade or whatever, and we can bounce. And I felt like the upgrades were better in the original as well, like in my opinion.
Yeah. The eagle gun
So
and stuff. Much
mhm.
better.
So it's kind of like, yeah, I missed the quick time events. That just added a layer to it. And they could have done it. Like,
See, the thing is with that, they could have put that in so seamlessly because the fact that, let's just say the remake played out in the exact same way as the original, when you're facing Nemesis at the police station, it doesn't have to necessarily flash up like it did before and say, do you want to fight or do you want to run? That can be just your decision. Shit, do I pull out my gun and attack him or do I run into the police station?
mhm,
Like, that can just be you. Like, it doesn't have to say anything. You can just make your decision on whether you want to fight or whether you want to run. Check my inventory. Crap, I've got 2 bullets. Best run.
yeah,
Oh wait, I'm stocked up. Let's do this. Like that could have been how they handled it. And I didn't expect that to be in the game because it was really random for the time as well because RE2 and 1 never had that. Like RE3 was
yeah,
the first one to do it. So I can imagine them being like, let's not do that. But still, they could have done something with it. Like there's just and this is the thing, it's just so many things we're missing. Like if it was just a couple of things, you'd be like, well, they had to modernize it, but there's so many things missing. Like this
mhm.
brings me on to where you're at now, the clock tower. So I was watching a video recently, and I think it was by someone on YouTube called Slippy Slides. I can't quite confirm that, so if it's not, I'm really sorry. But he did a video where he looked at the original and at the remake, and he analyzed the points of like how action filled each part of the game was. And it seems that Capcom removed all of the lulls in the game, so all of the slow bits.
That makes sense though, doesn't it? Because it feels so rushed.
That's exactly it. They put I can imagine them being like, get rid of all the slow boring bits, put all the action bits in. But actually what you've done is you've removed the break in the game where you get a moment to stop and pause and solve a puzzle and almost get time, like have time to get scared. Do you know what I mean? If you're like, oh shit, I've got to go back outside now, that bastard's out there walking somewhere and I've only got 3 bullets because there was 10 zombies in here and I've got no ammo left. Like, John, there's not time for you to build up fear. It's
There's no
so quick.
suspense. Exactly.
No.
There's no time to build up fear, suspense. There's no reason for you to. I mean, I think I didn't collect a pouch in my remake playthrough because there
Mhm.
was no need for it.
There's no
In
need.
RE2, I was like, give me all the pouches. Have I got enough
Mhm.
pouches? No, I want more pouches.
Exactly. I want a backpack. Find
I
me a
want a
backpack.
bloody get me a fucking suitcase, you know?
Yeah.
But like in Resi 3, it was like, ah, it's fine.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's annoying. And the clock tower is such an awesome looking place.
And it's iconic. Like, I know you've only just started playing the Resident Evils, really, but it's iconic because I'm not going to say too much because I now don't want to spoil something for you that you'll never experience again because the remake screwed it up. But the clock tower is iconic because a lot happens there, and there's a scene afterwards at like a church chapel as well, which is like really iconic, and they're like staples in the RE franchise when it comes to you know nostalgia and just like really good story plot points, and they just took them all out. Like Jill, oh, okay, so Jill being infected in the remake, right? And you're taken to the hospital. Carlos
Mm,
takes you to the hospital and then does like a whole Rambo situation and kills everything in there.
yeah,
In the original, when she's like infected, the only place he can take her that's safe is a chapel that's attached to the clock tower. So he puts her in a chapel, and then she has to lay there in a chapel, and that also adds a bit of layer, like a layer of fear, because he has to leave the chapel and go find the hospital. So
yeah.
she's stuck in a room where what could happen to her? Anything could happen to her. There's only a door in between them. There's zombies everywhere. Like it didn't. It just felt like there wasn't enough of no, there wasn't enough tension or fear and
No, and like I personally find churches in games very creepy and
yeah,
eerie because they're always
100%.
made to be quite eerie, aren't they? Like it's meant to
Mhm.
be this like holy safe place, but like a lot of the time a church is made out to be quite
And
an
most of the
unsafe
shit goes
place.
down.
You know, it's like it is where the shit goes down. And then in the remake, you were obviously she was just in a bed, and then you have this whole shooting sequence which goes on for a while, and you're just shooting at windows. It's like playing COD Zombies.
Let's fucking talk about that because that was crap. That's the only word for it. It was just boring.
Yeah, you just stood in a room. I felt like I was playing Call of Duty. I felt like I
Yes,
was playing a game of zombies shooting out the windows, and there was
the
yeah.
the only time they did that was in RE4 in the cabin, and they seem to think that equals good gaming, and it's like no one wants that. No one wanted the cabin scene because it was crap in RE4 as well. Like, and you didn't even have the banter of having another character with you to help you that you had to keep saving or protecting. Like, there was no goal to it. It was just literally shooting, and it was so unnecessary. And you thought, why am I doing this again? Because why did all of a sudden like also like in the sense of a story plot point? Why did all those things appear all of a sudden? Like, why did a hunter come out of the vents at that point? Why? Do you know what I mean? It was just really like, oh, okay,
I think that was one of my kind of issues with. Oh my god, here we go,
here
another
we go. I
issue.
know I'm.
I'm sorry, everyone. This is turned into like a full-on session, but
This is a dragging
I
session.
hope people agree though, and we're talking about points that other people understand. You know, and
Yeah.
I was obviously I loved looking at all the different designs and all the different kinds of enemies because I just love it. I love looking at the array of them. I loved it in
Hmm.
one. I thought that was brilliant. You got introduced to some new ones in two. Then in number three, mostly the remake, obviously. It was like let's throw a new enemy at you at every single second with no suspense. Just
Hmm.
so I think the only one suspenseful moment was when you first get introduced. I can't remember what they're called, but they have like the eye and their heads. It's just the head people. What are they called
So
now?
they are parasites. They're from
Yeah.
Nemesis.
So
Yeah.
the parasite
But even
people.
that, why couldn't Brad have been turned into a parasite because of Nemesis? Anyway, sorry, carry on.
But that's so that was for me. That was the only suspenseful moment was walking down the corridor,
Hmm.
and then the head pops up, and you're like, oh, what's that? And then obviously the hunters made me jump slightly. But I did feel like they were constantly throwing the enemies at you. It was like, look what we've got now, look what we've got now.
Yeah.
Like we took away the gravedigger, but here, have all these parasites and have all these
Hmm.
hunters. And it was like, okay. That in
It
my
was,
opinion. I just felt like they didn't build it up like enough for
yeah.
me.
They didn't build it up. There was not enough suspense, and it was like, and there wasn't enough suspense, and that is because of the fact they cut all these areas away. Because the areas are quiet and they give you a chance to build suspense. You're like, oh fuck, what's going to happen now? I've been like, in like, I always found in Resident Evil games, if it was quiet for too long, I was like, why is it quiet? What's about to come? Like that'd be my thing. Or it's like in the old RE games when you would walk into a room and you'd find like 50 handgun bullets and two shotgun shells. You're like, why do I need this? What's happening? What's coming?
Mhm.
Like, do you know what I mean? There was none of that. There was no build up to anything. And like again, I don't want to make it seem like we're just dragging this game because it is a really good game, the remake, and it did so much right. However, it just did a little bit too much wrong for me. Like, I think the game looked beautiful. I thought the acting was phenomenal. I thought, like, all the way through, the voice actors did a fantastic job, and I did believe every word they said. And like, Jill was a fantastic character, and Carlos, they improved him so much. And like when they had like Mikhail in the train and stuff, and when he like get off my train, shit bird, like all that was
Yeah.
fantastic. Like because Mikhail in the original, as you'll find out soon, it has like a nice iconic moment and like some scenes, but nothing is like as that. Like that will be remembered forever now. Like
Yeah.
they really expanded on the characters and did a fantastic job. But when it comes to scenery and like venue, like places you visit, they just messed up there because they weren't expanded enough. The wrong characters were going to the wrong places. The story just didn't seem worth it. It just seemed very throwaway.
Yeah. I have to say I did enjoy the fights with Nemesis.
Yeah.
I really, I think the one scene that I'll never forget is when Nemesis goes into the water and Jill walks away and she's
Yeah.
like, "Bitch can't even swim," and then
I
he
love that.
comes out and he's huge, you know.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed that whole
Swim.
sequence where she's got to like escape and stuff. Loved it.
Mhm.
Um, I even enjoyed the final fight with him. Obviously, I've not had the final fight with him in the original, so I don't know how much it differs. But
It's
from the
different.
fresh, it's different.
Mhm.
Okay, let's hope I don't not like the remake fight, but like, but no, I
Yeah.
really, I quite liked it. I felt like, I mean, the camera pissed me off, but it had a bit of an arcadey feel to it, and it was a little bit like, oh, where's he going to stop? Let's shoot this, you know. So it
Yeah,
wasn't a
it
bad
did actually. That's
fight.
a really good point. It did have an arcade feel to it.
Yeah, so it
Yeah.
wasn't a bad
Okay.
fight to be fair. I preferred the fights in Resi 2 with Birkin,
Yeah.
but other than that, I think yeah, I think everyone's gonna. Most people are gonna say they prefer 2, and I feel like 2 just did everything
Two just seemed like it
better.
was done with more care. Two seems like it was made by fans because what I actually did find out on my research is that when they were making RE2, basically the story began that they found somebody. There was people that were, as people do, there were people that were remaking RE2 in Unreal, obviously, you know, off the record. Capcom found out about it and sent them a cease and desist, but then they hired them and then brought them in. And then Capcom actually had fans of the game play small sections of RE2 and they gave improvements like long-standing fans and I believe long-standing streamers. I might have made that up, but I think that's true of RE2. They had them view small portions and say, right, what do you think? What would you like to happen next? What do you think could like improve this? Do you think it's too far? And they gave them critical feedback and it changed the shape of the game. And that is where RE2 was so good, even though it had a few faults. A game's allowed to have a few faults and fuck up in a few areas, but RE3, you can tell they did none of that. And if they did it poorly because a proper RE3 fans would have been like, oh, no, this is really good, but where's this, and that? Like, where's all that gone? So it just seemed like RE2 was made with more care and more love. I mean, even like when it comes to the boss fights in RE3, they were really good, but in RE3 original, you got to experience more quote unquote boss fights with Nemesis before he changed. So he felt like more of an initial threat. And then when he changed, you're like, oh fuck, what can he do now? He's changed. Like what other powers has he got now that I can't cope with? Whereas I feel like in the remake he changed too quickly. I mean, the whole game was too quick, but he evolved and changed too quickly.
Yeah,
And yeah, that was the issue. He became too much of a unusual thing too quickly.
yeah. That's the thing, isn't it? It's like you see so much more of him in the
Mm,
original.
yeah.
He feels a bit more like Mr. X in the sense that he'll just land and say stars, and you're like, here we go, and you have
Oh,
to
fuck's
find a
sake.
fucking door, you know, or time it and get past him. Um,
Yeah.
in this one, it wasn't like that.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
yeah, that is a bit of a shame. Like they kind of rushed it through. But again, like we said, I think the main issue with the game is it was rushed. I feel like it could have been brilliant. I feel like it had everything to be brilliant. They just cut too much out and pushed us along a bit too much. You know. Other
Yeah.
than that, it is a good game, you know. Like, but
Yeah.
I think most people would agree that if you play the remake and you feel like it is a bit short, you are going to look up the original, and if you play it, you'll be glad that you did.
Yeah.
So I would say probably play the remake before the original, just because if you was to play the
To not be
original before the
disappointed.
remake, you'll expect a lot more than you're going to get.
Yeah.
And that's like, it's a bit hit and miss in it. Like, it's not bad, but it's not Resi 2.
Yeah, it's just not. And like we said, they improved on so many things. I mean, even like as simple as the dodge mechanic. I mean, in the original, it's fully broken. Like it's not even hard to control. It's actually broken. Like it's been stated that it's fully broken.
Yeah,
So
it's
like sometimes you will dodge, sometimes you won't dodge, sometimes you'll be shooting instead of shooting, you'll dodge. Like it is really messed up in the original. And they fixed that. Like and I like how the difficulty reflected how easy it was to dodge and stuff in the remake. Like, that was done really well. I tell you what is a bitch, playing RE3 remake and then playing RE2 remake. And I was walking around as Claire, another female character. So in my head, I was like, okay, I'm still Jill. And then when Birkin went to hit me, I'd press like R1 to dodge, and then nothing would happen. I'd be like, why is she dodging? I was like, oh, I'm playing the wrong fucking
I
game.
I did the exact same thing. I did the exact same thing. Like, once I'd played Resi 3, I went back because I'd completed it within, like, I think an hour, and
Mm,
I went back to play Hunk section in Resi 2. And I was like, okay, let's like do this, and I just kept getting grabbed, and I was like, fuck, like I'm so used to having the option to fucking dodge,
yeah,
which I absolutely loved. I think the control scheme is brilliant in Resi 3. I like the dodge. I think it's great. I wish the dodge was
yeah.
in 2, but like can't have everything.
I do. I mean, I think the controls were so good in three, and almost and like it makes sense. Like from a story point thing, I'm glad they didn't cut that out because obviously Leon is a rookie and Claire is just a uni student with a gun, really, isn't she? With Chris as a brother, and Jill is a trained professional. Like she should be the one that's like able to work with more guns, able to dodge, able to have some form of combat. She should be the one that's the beast because she's been like training her whole life for this. You know what I mean? So it makes sense that they kept all of that in because she's a trained professional.
And let's just talk about Jill and her guns, because the gun at the end, I was not prepared for the gun at the end. I loved it though. Like when I
It
was
was
like,
good.
what? Like, what is this? I felt like the fight was let down. You didn't really get to do much with it. Like, I think it was like what, probably like 3 shots or something. But I loved it.
That is based on difficulty. When you're on, let me
Right.
tell you, that fight is. I'm gonna use the word impossible on Inferno. It's a little bit broken, but like it's near enough impossible on Inferno, and hardcore it's bloody difficult. Like, but that imagine that intense fight, and then imagine Jill sticking the railgun into his mouth and her saying, "You want stars? I'll give you stars." Like that is where it belongs. I'm sorry.
Oh, for
That
fuck
is where
yeah.
You want stars? I'll give you stars.
You
right.
love it. You
That
couldn't hold it in. You're like, how do you get it out?
like that is where it belongs. But no, the end fight is different to the end fight in the original. Obviously, I won't say more because you haven't got there, but it is different. Um, Even though it's very cheesy and it's very stupid. I mean, she's holding a fucking railgun, and when the thing shoots, really, her ankle should have snapped the second the shot went off, and she should have been electrified. I loved it. I love the thing like, oh, you enjoyed the railgun? How about being the fucking railgun? How about you pick it up and you are the railgun? Like
Yeah.
that was stupid and it was Resident Evil and it was great. Do you know what I mean? It was cheesy, it was fantastic. Because that's all Resident Evil is. It's just a 90s Hollywood action movie that's playable. Do you know what
It
I
is,
mean? Like
isn't it? Yeah.
it's that, and that's what it's meant to be. But I did really like it. I thought it was really funny. I did laugh to myself and I was like, yes, bitch, shoot that
Yeah.
fucking
It was a
that is.
fucking brilliant way to end it. Like, it
Mhm.
really was. Yeah. Brilliant. I liked the ending. I didn't really get the ending with the shot. I didn't like when you shoot I don't
Nikolai.
I don't think you can I can't remember. Maybe you can't. There's a time where you don't have to shoot him, or is it automatic? I can't remember because some of the choices happen anyways, and it's kind of like, oh. So
No,
maybe
so
that's.
you can shoot him,
Mm,
but you can also wait too long and then he kills you instead. And it's like
right.
that's what people are calling the alternate ending, but it's not. It's just a you died screen. But it's quite. Have you ever seen it? It's quite rough. He like
Mm.
headbutts Carlos and then turns around and takes his knife and throws it in between Jill's eyes, and it
Fucking
just like
hell.
it's really grim. I'll find it
They,
on
I tell
YouTube.
you what, man, they fucked around Jill hardcore in this, didn't they? Like some of the shit she got deep throat by these alien fucking knives in her eyes. Like Jill was getting done in.
Jill was getting done in. Bless her.
Her death scenes are grim though. Like when you're in the sewers and I can't remember what they're called.
Oh, when the
The
hunter
gamma.
gamma, yeah, the hunter
Just like
gamma, like
snap her in half, like
yeah,
backwards, and you're just like, I walked backwards into that thing, and I was like, why did I fucking do that? But yeah, they are
it's
grim. She has some
they are
deaths. She has
proper
some
grim.
deaths.
Poor
I
old
want more
Jill.
Jill. I want more Jill. I want a Resi 3 part 2.
Well, this is not a rumor at all, but what people are like campaigning for is that they'll release at like the end of the year, like almost like a game of the year edition, like a gold edition that has it's the same game with some extra bits included. Like, and they'll hopefully put things in like the clock tower or like just include some bits that weren't included previously. But this also brings me on to like I think like my final point about this game, like the final nail in the coffin, and that is Resident Evil Resistance, and that is the co-op like multiplayer, um, a bit like Left 4 Dead, I suppose, kind of game that was included with it that no one asked for, but yet we all got, and yet the main game was missing so much. Yet it's like we got two unfinished games rather than. Do you know what I mean? It's like sometimes for Christmas, I'd rather you buy me a really nice present rather than two shit presents. Do you know what I mean? Just because you gave me two presents doesn't mean I like them. If you
I
take the
never
two,
played Resistance, so this is all news to me.
it's
Lay it on.
fucking tragic. So like, yeah, like I said, rather than spend 20 quid twice, just buy me a £40 gift altogether. Like, do you know what I mean? It's
Mm.
just like it's just broken in quite a few places. Like it's just not really fun. Like it's basically the idea is because you haven't played it. It's like you pick from a selection of like teenagers that have certain skills. So one's really good at like shooting because she's like a country gal that was raised on a farm, and like one's like really like technical and is good at like hacking into cameras and stuff. And they all have different strengths. And then you have the overseer, like the enemy. And it's like different people, so you can choose. It can be like William Birkin. No, sorry, it could be like Albert Wesker. It could be Alex Wesker. It can be like a few different people who are in control of the enemy side, if you like. And basically, let's just say five people play the game. Four of you are on the good team, and one of you is the evil person. And the evil person's job is to plant zombies and creatures in different parts of the level to try and stop you from achieving your goal. And then they can release like a super beast. So one of them is like Nemesis, one of them is William Birkin can come and attack you, one of them is like something else. So it's just stopping you from finishing your mission. However, it's kind of rigged in the bad person's favor sometimes, and sometimes it's just not very fair. And they've given Jill like little Easter eggs, like when she stands still, you have the idle animation from the original game that plays. Why is that in Resistance and not in the original, like in the actual fucking game that you just spent all this time remaking? Like it almost was like an I'm sorry. We know this isn't going to be fantastic, so here's a little second in game. It's like when someone slides you a tenner under the table because they know they've like screwed up. It just wasn't good. It just wasn't good. I'm sorry. It just wasn't good, and I'm just so upset and not really fan.
All right. I think. I'm so sorry we've been so negative, everyone. I guess you can't polish a turd, you know? Like, it's good, but, you know, when you know it was originally better, you can't help but say it.
Yeah,
So, yeah, sorry about that. It's going to be
it's almost
slightly
their own
negative.
fault because they shouldn't have created such a great PS1 game. There you
There
go.
you go.
That's a positive
Yeah.
way of wording it, isn't it? They
Yeah.
shouldn't have been so good so early on because they peaked. Like,
I think that's the issue, though, isn't it? A lot of games are so good that, like, you just yeah. I mean, we've said it before, like you can't remake that shit unless you
no.
do it like literally line by line, and I'm talking
Hmm.
everything stays exact same, which is kind of impossible because people are going to want to add more to it, and then we lose track of it. So, but I guess they made it more because all right. So I've started Resi 4 now, and for my stream, and like I can see definitely how actually it fit. Okay, so I feel like Resi 3 now fits more in with Resi 4. Like the remake of 3 fits
Okay.
more in with Resi 4 because it's action and it's quick.
Yeah.
Not saying that Resi 4 is quick because I've heard it's one of the longest games in the series,
Mhm.
but they've almost kind of lined it up, and then it's all action, and it's like they're made free to fit the quota
It's like they're
almost.
taking the heat off of 4 because 4 was blamed. I mean, 4 is like considered in the fandom as one of the best ones ever
Yeah, a lot of
created.
people enjoy it, and I am enjoying it myself. To be fair, I mean I'm not very far. It doesn't really feel like a Resi yet. It feels like a different kind of game, but I am enjoying it. I don't. I need to finish it before I can
Yeah.
form an opinion.
I mean, obviously, we're not talking about Resident Evil 4 for this
No,
episode, but I
but
will just say it's not my favorite game. I did like it. I enjoyed it. However, it wasn't for me. It wasn't fantastic. I'm not like every other RE fan that's like, oh my god, RE4 is the best, or the others are shit. Like, no, it wasn't. But RE4 was blamed with making it the action series because obviously, now from playing the original three, it wasn't that. It wasn't as action orientated as 4 is. People are like, well, four made that whole action thing, whatever, blah blah blah, and then 5 just gets progressively more action. I actually did really like 5 though. 5 I think is a brilliant game, and then 6 just takes it to a whole new bloody level, and then 7 just press the reset button. So like, you know what I mean? It's like
it's true.
it is
I mean,
evolving.
I've not played 7, but I think everyone can see the evolution of Resi, and
Yeah,
it's changing. And the reveal of like Resi 8 with the little storytelling and things like that, that's not Resi,
I don't think it's going to be any good whatsoever. There's
we
not
can hope.
witches in Resi. Like, I love magic and all that kind of stuff. I think it's really interesting and really good. However, the fact that it just looks it just doesn't look Resident Evil.
It's Resident Evil 4, I'm telling you now. It's Resident Evil 4.
Yeah, literally, just
It's
with
called The
Chris.
Village. It's going to be Resi 4. But yeah.
Well, that was the whole thing because people thought that Resi 4 was being remade because it's called Resident Evil Village, and obviously 4 is set in that Spanish village. So people were
Mm.
like, "Oh my god, Resi 4 being like a remake confirmed," but then it wasn't. But now apparently there is a secret RE4 being remade, but I don't think RE4 needs it. I think they should go back and remake RE1 in the style of 1, 2, and 3, or actually they could just go back and just do a better job on 3. Actually, let's do that first. Go back to 3 and fix all the fuck ups, and
Yeah.
then you
Sort
do
3
whatever.
out and we're sorted.
Yeah. But hey ho, I think we've dragged this game to filth enough,
I
and
know.
I can only apologize because Resident Evil's so near and dear to my heart. I'm hateful because I care, because I love it. Do you know what I mean?
I
Like,
think that's what it is. Like we say it out of love, not out of hate.
yeah, 100%. So, but on a positive note, the game did a lot of things really, really, really well. It runs super smooth. The characters are fantastic. The acting is great. It looks beautiful. They improved, quite a bit about the game. They improved the dodge mechanics, which is fantastic. Nemesis looks great. They managed to make things like the end fight feel a little bit more meaningful. Carlos was great. They improved his look. They improved Mikhail. Like, there
Hmm.
was a lot they did right with the game, and like even the scenery, like even though it didn't feel like a city as much as the original, it still looks like a great city, and it still does feel frightening in some places. However, it just didn't meet the standards that we have before. So it doesn't mean that I hate it at all. Like, I still play it. I still play it. I think it's a great game because it is quick and easy to slap on. However, that's just not necessarily what I wanted from my RE3 remake. That's all.
No. I think when you play 1, 2, you're. I mean, I know they can be finished pretty quickly, but you are expected a large game in the sense that, right, I need to get my puzzling brain on. I need to
Yeah.
get my kind of, strategy game on. And then in 3, that wasn't required. But yeah, saying that, playing it as like with fresh eyes and everything. Like I keep saying it, fresh eyes, fresh eyes.
So fresh.
So fresh. Really liked it. I just felt like there was always something a little bit missing, and obviously
Yeah.
now I know what it was. So yeah, I think definitely worth playing. Maybe not at full price. Probably about, I'd say,
Yeah.
20 quid, 25. I paid 25 quid for it. I got it like a little bit cheaper. I
Mhm.
think it's worth that.
I think so.
I don't
Not
think
the
it's worth full
45 or
price.
whatever I paid. I paid like I got because I was so hyped. I got the collector's edition, not the
You
proper
did.
collector's edition. I couldn't get that, but the one with the badge. So I
Hmm.
feel a bit cheated, but hey ho. we live and learn.
We do. We do.
We do. I would say the original an an 8 to 9 out of 10. I'd say the remake like a 6 to 7 out of 10. Do you agree? I'm being kind.
No, I do agree. I don't. Yeah, no, I do agree. I don't think it's. I don't. I think the game itself isn't bad. If we let's treat it like there was no. It's meant to be a remake, isn't it? At the end of the day, and
Yeah.
I guess when you remake something, you're remaking it. You know, like it doesn't have to be the same, even though technically it should be the same.
Mm.
Realistically, it doesn't have to be the same.
It
So I
should be at
think,
least similar.
yeah. So I think if you try and ignore the fact that the original exists, then it's good.
Yeah, okay.
I'm basically agreeing with you, but I'm trying to make it sound better.
You're trying to make
Okay?
it sound better, okay.
Cool.
But no, like it's like end it all. Yeah, we don't hate it. We've said lots of positive things about it in like a way or another. I do think it was a really good game. I really enjoy it. I still play it now. It sadly didn't meet up to my expectations, but hey ho, we've now been going on about this for quite a while. I think we're kind of approaching the end of our time. So yeah, we're sorry if we basically just sounded like we were dragging the game through the mud. I mean, we kind of did, but
It
there's
was
still a
out of
lot of
love. It was
it's
out
out
of
of
love.
love. It's just because we love it so much. That's why
Yeah,
we dragged it. Like, you're harshest on the ones you love. Do you know what I mean?
exactly. It's true. It's true. That's all it was. I think we had good critique.
Yeah, I think so.
There's some critique there.
We'll wait and see what the Twitter comments say about this one. Right, okay, so I think we'll call it a day for now. But just to remind you, we do have a Twitter. It's at TG Breakdown, and we do have an Instagram at TG Breakdown Podcast. And you might be seeing us on the old YouTube soon as well, if you're interested in listening to our podcast that way. So yeah, anything else you want to say?
No. Thanks for listening.
Yeah.
And yeah, we'll get that all set up so everyone can listen to YouTube, because obviously it's a little bit more accessible for some people, and the more accessible, the better.
Yeah. So thanks for all the support we've had so far, and we'll catch you in the next one.
Bye.
Bye.